everybody, I'm Cantonese Cat. Hey everybody, Cantonese Cat here. So I'm going to give a quick update on Bitcoin and the miners and other stocks whenever I can. I'm going to keep it under 15-20 minutes. I can't really do longer than that. But I had a post yesterday on the Bitcoin chart. This is the monthly chart here with the Ichimoku cloud shown. And I was showing how I think that is trying to backtest support here at a rising Tenkan, or the blue line over here, conversion line, whatever you call it, after this big giant bullish cross here. And usually with the bull market, price rides up along with a rising Tenkan, and it looks like it's just kind of going back and backtesting the support. And sure enough, like, it really turned out to be a pretty impulsive bounce from that today. We are bouncing from that area pretty well. So far starting support doesn't necessarily mean it's not going to wick down further. If it wicks down further, it continues to find support that zone, that actually gives me a lot more confidence that this could be a bottom. So anything that's lower here, I'm actually not that bearish about anymore, to be completely honest with you. I like where Bitcoin is right now. I like the support that it's finding, and I like what it's doing in terms of the reaction after it kind of backtest that area. So those are just some pretty quick thoughts on Bitcoin. Overall, the other way to kind of look at Bitcoin, if you look at the Ichimoku cloud here, that's what I'm saying. I think that there's potential for a month of September can still go down and wake up down to like 53 or 54,000, trying to backtest that support, but then eventually close the month back above the Tenkan here, which is going to be 56,000, somewhere around there, right? So on the weekly, I still think that there might be some shenanigans that they might end up playing. It might end up going down here, and we're still underneath the Tenkan and Kijun resistance right here on the weekly chart, just like we were over here. We're underneath the Tenkan and Kijun over here, but eventually we will break above it, and eventually some pretty bullish thing happens. Maybe we need to backtest the cloud, maybe we don't. It's just something to kind of think about here on the weekly time frame. On the 2-week time frame, still look very nice. I don't have much to say about Bitcoin besides that it's bouncing. There's still some downside potential risk around 53, 54K, but it doesn't have to go down anymore, because I think it did the appropriate backtest around 55,000, 56,000 at a very important critical support zone, and it passed. And this week from August also had backtested this other area over here after its breakout, so I actually don't think it has to go down further that much anymore, but just be aware of what I'm thinking a little bit here. Now, MSTR also did the same thing essentially here on the monthly. These two charts are the same, except that MSTR seems to be a little bit more of a leverage play compared to Bitcoin. So whenever it finds support, if this is it, we might end up going higher. You have the MSTR over Bitcoin chart. Also is looking pretty bullish. It's supposedly been forming higher highs and higher lows. I mean, I don't really have any problems with that. It's still underneath the monthly cloud here with the ratio MSTR over Bitcoin. So who knows? Maybe it breaks above the cloud, and maybe MSTR is going to have another crazy run. We'll see about that, right? Going to Coinbase, I think Coinbase is looking pretty decent actually. It opens up the month underneath the 0.382, which it's underneath resistance right now, but it's only been a couple of days. And so far, you're having a little bit of a negative reaction, but I think, again, I think it's just a part of the shenanigans that the whales are playing. I think there's demand on the zone over here. I think eventually it's gonna, push up higher, and I still think that by maybe towards mid to late 2025, I still think that a quadruple digit over 1,000 Coinbase stock is possible. I still think it's entirely possible. So we'll see what happens. It's just a higher low. Is trying to backtest the Kijun, the red line over here, as support. So far, it's not even touching it. And so far, you're holding pretty well, right? I'm not really that worried. It's still a little bit far from the 20-month moving average, so could it go down further, backtest it? That's entirely possible, but I don't think it has to. I think it just got rejected up here at a very, very long standing zone over here that price has spent between 220, 230 to 270 here for a long time, and we tried push through that once, not able to. We're just backtesting some of the levels over here that we've had a big giant breakthrough above. So still pretty bullish on Coinbase overall. If you ask me about CleanSpark, I'm going to make this generalized statement here about all miners. I don't anticipate miners to really start pumping like crazy again until Bitcoin breaks its all-time high, which we're still, a little bit far away from doing. The all-time high right now is really 74,000, right? And until IWM also breaks its all-time high, I think it needs two factors for it to really go up crazy. but none of those factors are being met yet. Like, IWM previous all-time high was 244.46, and right now we're still quite a ways away from it, right? So I made a video before back in March basically detailing, hey, I don't think miners are going to really pump until both those conditions are met. I'm going to try and put that link here maybe towards the end of the video as like a click through, but so far we don't have that condition being met yet, right? So that just means that miners are probably going to consolidate, maybe even having a little bit of downward pressure before Bitcoin or before IWM is going to reach their all-time high again. I think that will happen, and I think that will happen within months. I just don't know when exactly that's going to happen. Meanwhile, all these miners have basically been doing something very, very similar. They're back, this is CleanSpark, by the way, they're back testing like a 20-month moving average. And right now, it's a little bit underneath of that, but I think we're probably end up closing a month above of it, because this should be a relatively strong support zone over here. Currently is around 9.21 right now. Price is around $9, but I do anticipate price will probably end up closing a month above that, because it should serve as pretty decent support, right? Even if it closes underneath of it, doesn't bother me. Just like over here, it closes above this negative sloping 20-month moving average and still end up plummeting down further, right? So that doesn't really bother me one way or another, but I do think that we're at a pretty good support zone. It could go down further. What I mean by that, well, the Bollinger Band is expanding here on the weekly, so it could go down further with time. But I also think that one thing that I was posting on X that I thought was a pretty significant thing was this. If I just get rid of the 50 and the 20, if you look at the 100-week moving average, you can see that how it's been serving as resistance here, support here, resistance here, and then we have yet to test this area as support, right? Currently, the 100-week moving average is around 8.07, so I wonder whether or not price might end up correcting a little bit more sideways here until this catches up, or we might actually end up having a little bit more of a flush and kind of come back test around $8, and that's going to be a very, very good support zone over here, just like how it was very good resistance, support, resistance. So I think this is going to be a pretty good support zone right here if we end up touching it. $8 would be a great area for me to try to buy as much as I can, although I haven't really been trying to time it perfect. I have an entry around here around $7 to $8, and I kept on buying at the lower part of the range here around like 15, and then now I've been buying like around 12, I've been buying around 10, and I've been buying around $9. I bought underneath $9 yesterday as well. So I'm not trying to time it perfect, but I do think that when it hits the $8 range, it's probably going to serve as a pretty decent support here for CleanSpark. Even on the daily, I'm starting to see some bullish divergence here with the weight trend oscillator. You have price going down, but the trend oscillator going up. So there are a lot of things that are kind of going for it. On the 2-week chart, I also spotted something here, which is the unbalanced volume. I see a little bit of a bullish divergence where price went down, but the unbalanced volume has gone up. So that actually is a lot of like secret buying pressure behind the scenes that's been happening over the last few months, even though price has really plummeted like by 50%. And a lot of people don't like that, obviously, because they all think short term. But I do think that this bullish diversion is probably going to end up working out. So that's CleanSpark. On Mara, we also have the same kind of bullish divergence. Price went down, the unbalanced volume has gone up. So there's a lot of secret buying pressure behind the scene. Matter of fact, I'm going to go straight to this here because I probably won't spend too much time talking about it. RIOT has the same bullish divergence with price going down and unbalanced volume going up. So I think RIOT actually is at a pretty good spot there. It might have bottomed. If you're interested a little bit more about RIOT, I suggest you subscribe to the Great Masby. TGM Trading is the YouTube channel that he has, but he also has a X profile, Matt Hughes 13. This is X profile, so he has some really interesting stuff in GAN, things like that. I think you'll like what he sees. But RIOT, I think, is actually potentially bottoming and showing some signs for bullish divergence here that I haven't seen for forever. But going back to Mara, the key thing is that I think Mara doesn't have as much downside risk as CleanSpark because it's already, that's a 2-week chart. It's already back tested more or less the 100-week moving average. And just like CleanSpark, how 100-week moving average is very, very good support and resistance, Mara also has served as very good support and resistance here too, like support over here, right? Support before it broke, and then resistance over here, and then right now we just back tested a support back in August, whenever you have the great fear, right? So far I actually think Mara is at a pretty good spot. I also had this pitchfork over here that I have shown before. I think it's just been forking upwards in a channel, so like there's really nothing really too entirely bearish about it. I think if anything it's just kind of getting a little bit close to back testing the bottom of the channel over here. It looks like it's passing so far, so nothing too entirely bearish about this chart that I'm seeing overall. The let me see here, let me get rid of the pitchfork here. The one thing that I do have to say I did not like at all, and it might take some time, I don't think it's like entirely bearish, but I think it illustrated the point that it might take some time for Mara to really catch up, is because it did break down underneath this trend line over here, and it is back testing, and it did get rejected, so you do have some technical stuff you have to work out here, maybe for another few weeks to a couple months before price really get going again, right? But I do think that the next natural level, even if it back tests this level over here, is probably go up to like around 20 bucks, 20.5, somewhere around there at the bottom of the weekly cloud. I think that's where price is going to end up gravitating up towards for Mara, is what I think, right? Bitfarms, basically same thing, channeling up, no problem. If anything, I think that Bitfarm is actually not really respecting the 100-week moving average, so it's not that great of an indicator for that. But I think that overall Bitfarm is more like an exaggerated version of Mara. They have the same chart, essentially. So I'm not really, like they have the same chart, right? So I think charting one is, so far, is not really showing me any additional benefit compared to charting the other. I have both, just to make sure, you know. But I think Bitfarm's also going to do pretty well. Now, Cipher, they just announced the offering again. Just like any other Bitcoin miners, they've just been diluting, but it's still finding support here at the volume shelf. And if you're pulling up the, unfortunately, if you put up the Ichimoku cloud here, it did break underneath the cloud. It found a vulnerable spot here, the cloud did break underneath of that. So it's not the greatest. On the 2-week cloud, also seemed to have broken a little bit underneath of that as well. So let's see if we see something different here on the Super Ichi. It looks like we're bouncing almost perfectly from the bottom of the 2-week Super Ichi cloud, right? And on the weekly chart here, I think we're still at inside the weekly Super Ichi cloud, so there's not really anything significantly to be bearish about it. I think it's just that we're underneath resistance here at the $5.5 to $5.5 zone. We're also broke underneath through the $4 zone, so right now we're just going to probably end up going sideways here for another few weeks to a couple of months, waiting for the technicals to kind of catch up. And eventually I think we're going to end up going up higher. I'm not that worried about this stock. I do want to focus on a higher time frame here. It is underneath the 20-month moving average, which again is a little bit unfortunate. But I like the fact that it's back testing. I think there's a potential for Cipher to end up closing back above 3.29, which is where rising 20-month moving average is currently located. If it breaks down underneath, it's no big deal. But I like to see it kind of closing back above that if possible. It's underneath the Tenkan and Kijun here on the monthly, so technically it's got some repairing that it needs to do. But I'm still not really that bearish. It's underneath the Super Ichi Tenkan here, but I'm still not really that bearish on the fact that I think this is still overall a higher low compared to over here, and this still looks like a channel going up. So, you know, I'm still relatively bullish on this stock, and but there might be a little bit more, you know, repairing that it needs to do. I would really like to see the month close above 3.29 for Cipher. Irene, there's really nothing bearish to like be too scared about. The stock is still above a rising 20. It simply just got way outside the upper Bollinger Band. It had to kind of come back down in, you know, it just can't stay in space. It follows gravity here a little bit. On the weekly chart, it really tells you exactly what's been happening. What's really been happening is that it's been forming nothing but higher highs and higher lows, and it broke above this symmetrical triangle here, back tested it, and right now it's back testing this trend line over here again, and it's also coincidentally at a pretty decent volume shelf over here too. So I think Irene looks one of the more bullish stocks that we have here for all the miners, and there's really nothing that I'm really that concerned about. It's still about the Ichimoku cloud, balance of the Ichimoku cloud, right? Now it's finding support here at the trend line There's still a little bit of potential downside risk, of course. Maybe it comes back down to around $6. I still think it's entirely possible if it breaks underneath the trend line over here. But you're gonna have some pretty decent support here at the bottom of the cloud, and also, at the cloud itself, and also at the volume shelf, right? So I'm not too worried about that. WULF looks probably one of the most bullish charts there is. I can't really say anything bad about TeraWulf at all. On the monthly, it's not even nearly touching the 20-month moving average here at all. It still looks great in terms of like the Tenkan Kijun support. It's really actually bouncing right at the rising Tenkan over here on the monthly, which is quite impressive. I added a little bit to TeraWulf yesterday because of the way that it looks, right? It did end up breaking underneath the Tenkan over here. I don't think it's that big of a deal. There's still a potential for a price to go down to like $2.6, although the trend is telling me that it may not happen. That I'm not gonna, bet for that, right? Bounce from a 2-week Kijun. So far, like, TeraWulf looks like one of the better ones. And then finally, I want to get to BTBT because I have a position in it. I think month is probably end up closing about the Kijun over here around 2.9. It's not that far off right now. I like this chart. I mean, it did end up breaking underneath the Ichimoku cloud here, but in the same vein as I was talking about CleanSpark, as I was talking about what's the other chart, Mara. I can see that the 100-week moving average has really been flipping from like a resistance to support, and it's just been really nicely like forming a little rounded kind of bottom over here. So yeah, price could potentially come back down a little bit further to like the 2.3 range, somewhere around there. I think it's entirely possible, but it doesn't have to, because right now it's finding some support here at a pretty important horizontal zone, where previously it was serving as resistance over here, and right now it's serving as support, right? So I actually like BTBT. I don't really have a whole lot bad things to say about this chart here as well, right? Looking at a higher time frame, it got rejected here as a Ichi cloud, and it initially broke inside the Ichimoku cloud, but it's kind of underneath of that here a little bit. That's why I think price probably ended up gravitating back towards around $3 to close the month, because you're having a lot of support zone over here right now. This might just turn out to be a little bit of a wick underneath below that, right? The overall message of all these miners, and I gotta go, but overall message of these miners is exercise patience. A lot of the short-term technicals are, what I'm showing you are making sense, but they're very, very volatile stock. And I've been burned. Like, I was following the weekly Ichimoku cloud. It didn't really work out very well for me, right? I was looking at the weekly Ichimoku cloud, didn't really work out very well for me, right? So I was looking at the weekly Ichimoku cloud, didn't really work out very well for me, right? But I think the lesson for me to learn is that I think they're very, very volatile stocks, and that we, instead of relying on purely on technicals, scale in at at areas, but also be open-minded that it can always drop down a lot lower, because so far IWM is still not hitting its previous all-time high, quite far from it, and also Bitcoin, no matter how bullish Bitcoin looks today, is still nowhere near its previous all-time high, which is still another 15,000 away, right? Anyway, that's the message. Thank you so much for listening. Have a good one. Bye.